Hey, it's Jen Maleka, the Holistic Health Boss, your functional health practitioner and expert. And this week, I want to talk to you guys about whether or not fasting is right for you. Now, intermittent fasting is an age-old dietary philosophy that is getting some national recognition recently from an episode of Megyn Kelly, if you guys are NBC fans. But with the keto diet craze on the rise, there has definitely been a lot of talk in general about fasting. It seems as though every person who has come through my functional health coaching practice has either dabbled in some type of fasting or maybe at least thought about it for a moment. But is fasting really right for you is the question that you should be asking. And my simple answer to this question is you are unique and therefore your diet should be too. What works for one person is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. This is why you'll often see people say how maybe eating paleo, Whole30, gluten-free, or insert diet of your choice didn't work for them, yet someone they knew saw amazing results from it, and that's why they just had to try it for themselves. Now, in general, intermittent fasting or dietary approaches using fasting techniques have a wide range of health benefits, such as helping to balance blood sugar levels to reverse things like diabetes and insulin resistance, promoting weight loss, reducing inflammation in the body, helping to regulate hormones that signal for hunger, also healing the intestinal lining, aka leaky gut, and helping with decomposing of damaged cells and generating new ones, which there's an absolutely fascinating biology component to that. And if you want to geek out more about that, check out Dr. Jason Fung. Now, fasting has been used for ages in Eastern philosophies of medicine to help reverse or prevent health conditions such as cancer, diabetes, and other chronic diseases, okay? So if we think about fasting from, let's say, a primal or an ancestral standpoint, it has been around basically since the beginning of mankind. As hunter-gatherers, our primitive ancestors frequently went without food for periods of time in between successful hunting excursions and then during times of famine when food sources were low or hard to come by. They didn't have the luxuries of a fast food drive-through on almost every corner or food at their fingertips like we do today with delivery services and all the other food resources we have. However, fasting is not right for everyone, and in some cases, it can actually produce more negative health side effects than the benefits. Now, fasting may not be right for you if you have an existing hormone imbalance, such as something going on in your thyroid, estrogen, testosterone, or cortisol, or if you currently suffer with some type of sleep issue, if you have underlying vitamin and mineral deficiencies, if your liver is possibly already sluggish or overloaded, if you have heavy metals or other toxins built up in your body, and if you're someone who has a tendency to avoid salt or not eat enough of it. However, even with some of these kind of reasons as to why fasting may not be right for you, you can still give fasting a try if you approach it in the right way. Now, in order to set yourself up for successful fasting, you should first investigate and address any of the contributing factors to these pre-existing health issues that I just mentioned, basically. So in this week's blog, I want to share more with you about how to assess if intermittent fasting is right for you and how to properly use it as a tool for maybe optimal health. So let's dive in a little bit deeper here. Now, let's define first what fasting is, or kind of break this concept down for those of you who may not know. When it comes to intermittent fasting, especially as it relates to the keto diet, there are basically kind of two schools of thoughts that are floating around there. Now, the first school of thought is that fasting means that you're not eating anything that contains calories for a period of time, so no food. And the second school of thought is where fasting means not eating sources of immediate energy such as carbs or proteins, but you can have things like fat. Now, both approaches basically focus on training the body to primarily utilize fat stores for energy and to become fat adapted. Now, the standard American diet and even most other whole food or primal diets such as paleo and Whole30 constantly supply the body with readily available fuel sources in the form of carbohydrates such as veggies, fruits, and nuts, and proteins, which are contained in things like meat and beans. Now, training the body to become fat adapted requires cutting off sources to these readily available types of fuel that convert into glucose and forcing the body to tap into its own fuel storage, fat, basically. Now, where fasting has a tendency to go wrong is when sometimes people who fast, they go to the complete opposite extreme when they allow themselves to eat between their fasting periods. You know, these people might load up on fast, convenient junk foods or binge on their favorite foods as a result of feeling deprived or having a false sense that fasting just fixes everything, right? So in this circumstance, or through these actions, this does the body zero favors and kind of completely cancels out the benefits of fasting. After a fast, the first foods that should hit your lips should be high in nutrients, cleanliness, and reaping tons of health benefits. Now then, there are also the people with pre-existing imbalances in the body, in which case the body is not well equipped to handle a successful transition of fuel sources from maybe carbs and glucose to fat to become fat adapted. Pre-existing hormone imbalances and nutrient deficiencies, either known or unknown, are the most common and overlooked obstacles when it comes to reaping the benefits of fasting. Now think of this. Food avoidance also equals vitamin and mineral avoidance in general. And our hormones thrive off the delivery and accessibility of certain vitamins, minerals, and nutrients such as selenium, zinc, B vitamins, and cholesterol. Now, a reduction in available nutrients results in a reduction of function in terms of our hormones. Most often, this is why people feel worse when they fast or experience what is called the keto flu. Initially, their thyroid, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, or a number of other hormones will take a hit from fasting from the lack of nutrients that are available. Without proper preparation, the impact of fasting can then have some drastic side effects to one's overall hormonal well-being. It can either make existing imbalances in the thyroid, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, melatonin, and other hormones worse, or it can create an imbalance where one didn't already exist, and that's not what we usually want, right? So ideally, once someone has become fat adapted though, through successful fasting, the body is able to source a lot of the nutrients it needs from its own resources. But getting to that point can be a process and not something that happens overnight in your first fast. So let's assess if fasting is right for you and how to properly prep for it. First is to test, don't guess. It's better to know about any underlying hormone or nutrient imbalances before you dive into fasting. At a minimum, I would say check your thyroid, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone, and melatonin levels along with your vitamin and mineral balance before you start a fasting routine. If any imbalances exist, you'll want to lay the foundation to help reverse them with a therapeutic diet, adequate sleep, appropriate exercise, stress reduction, and nourishing supplements before jumping into fasting. Now, the next thing is that you want to ease into it. Slowly ease your body into the transition of fasting with fat as your only fuel source. Fat is not readily available as fuel when ingested, so it doesn't convert to glucose right away. So your body is still forced to tap into its fat resources in order to gain that energy. So what I do is I have a matcha latte in the morning with collagen, ghee, and high-fat coconut milk that helps to deliver some of the essential nutrients to my body so that it can function at its potential while still staying away from carbs and proteins that can hijack fat adaptation that you're trying to achieve. Next is to start in small chunks. Don't go for the gold right away. Start by making dinner your last meal and fasting overnight, and then gradually extending the time that you eat breakfast in the morning a few days a week. For myself, I typically stop eating at 8 p.m. and don't have my first meal until 9:30 or 10 a.m. the next morning, resulting in somewhere between a 12 to a 14-hour fasting period. As your body adapts, your energy will improve, letting you know when you can extend the length of time in which you are fasting, maybe up to 16 hours. Now, women, I want you to take caution here because our hormones are particularly sensitive to food deprivation, so it's best to fast every other day instead of every single day. Next is that you want to move and restore. Some studies have shown that low-grade duration exercise complements fasting best for better results. During a fast, the body is actually working hard breaking down fat and damaged cells to reuse their parts for fuel and nutrients. We don't need to push it to work harder. Engaging in intense workouts on fasting days can tap into the body's resources, making recovery way too hard, and this in itself can lead to hormonal imbalances. So on fasting days, focus on moving your body in a more restorative way by taking long walks, maybe doing a yoga class or Tai Chi, or something that is restorative to reap all the benefits of your fasting that day. And lastly is to salt and supplement. When you're avoiding food, you're also avoiding access to nutrients. So it's essential to supplement what you might be missing out on in food if you're not eating. Taking a high quality multivitamin and mineral complex supplement on a daily basis is a good idea in general, just because our food these days is less nutrient dense than it was before, even the organic stuff. So if you're avoiding food altogether for the purpose of fasting, then supplementing with vitamins and minerals will help to keep your hormones happy, your energy balanced, and with the process of fat adaptation. Our ancestors salted meat to cure them for food storage and ate every part of the animal, such as organs, cartilage, etc. So the nutrient values in their body were much higher than ours are today, even when they were forced to fast. So I want you to think of fasting like basically training for a marathon. You need the right shoes, you need to have a gradual training regimen that leads to longer runs over a period of time, proper hydration and food to refuel, and recovery time to make it to that finish line, right? Now we want to think that the body is a well-oiled machine and that it's ready to adapt anything that we throw at it, but that's generally not the case, considering all of the variables that impact our health on a day-to-day basis in this modern world. So with most diet trends, people have a tendency to dive all in without considering if their body is actually ready for it. And when it doesn't work, they give up essentially, right? And often it's not the diet that didn't work, but something else under the hood that actually got in the way. And this is why it's always better to test, not guess, in order to figure out exactly what is right for your body, so you don't go spinning your wheels, wasting money or wasting time on failed attempts or other things that might not be working for you and strategies that aren't right for you and your body. So if you want to assess your readiness for intermittent fasting, or to figure out what foods are right for your body so that it can function at its potential, then I want to invite you to schedule a complimentary Ideal Health and Weight discovery session by clicking on the link below or going back to the email where you found this video. As a holistic health boss, my goal is to help health-minded people like you get access to the right tests and resources in order to find the missing pieces to your health puzzle so that you can get back to feeling like yourself again or for the very first time. So heed these notes on intermittent fasting. I hope that you guys found this helpful, and I'll see you on the blog next week.